3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street. We are here with Trade Like Einstein. I am Peter Tuchman, and we're here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in the balcony. History is made in this building every single day. Somebody with my long-term experience, I've been here for 137 years. It is my responsibility to help teach you how to navigate this market successfully. Boom! Hey everybody, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street, here from the balcony at the New York Stock Exchange. This is Trade Like Einstein, Money News Network. The Einstein of Wall Street. I brought you everything in fashion, food, finance, and wellness. And also one of the biggest things I love to do is talk about our wellness here. I talk about humanists. I talk about, when individuals change our lives in a super positive way. At the end of the day, it isn't really about the cash and prizes. That to me is not that exciting, right? And I know I work on Wall Street and it's all about making money and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this channel, this platform that I use is really about the humanist factor, right? That is a big part of my life here on the floor of the stock exchange. We are the last human interactive marketplace. So the human interaction of one person to another is the most important thing that I talk about, but from a social media platform and a YouTube channel and a podcast, when it comes to the human interaction of one human being to another, somebody who's changing people's lives in a positive way, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, the rest of it's bullshit, right? So anyway, today I've got two special guests. I have Jill Harris and I have Jonathan Banks. Welcome to Trade Like Einstein. It's great to have you here. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So we're here on the balcony of the New York Stock Exchange, right? And I just sort of gave you a little intro and sort of, I guess people don't think of this place as sort of a place where we should talk about humanist type of issues. But, in a way, it is a perfect place for it because this is the last human interactive marketplace in the world, right? And so for me, and this sort of podcast is a place where I sort of delve into things that have to do with our physical health, our mental health, and the human interaction, one human being to another, and how, it's something that I learned from my father. So there's a lot of connection here. So this wonderful young lady knew my father. I knew her family. We're super, super close. And then recently we found out that this person's family, Jonathan Banks, who's a doctor, also we've got a lot of close ties in our family, that my father used to talk about that, at the end of the day, it's not about cash and prizes. It's about how you can impact another human being in a positive way, in any way. And, especially from within the medical field. My father was super frustrated. My father was a well-known doctor. He was an internist, diagnostician, but the most frustrating thing for him was to watch the medical practice, go from a place that had some level of humanism, right? It was never perfect, but it was a lot different than where it's going, where, now you spend, 45 minutes at the doctor's office, 42 of it's while he's looking at your charts, and then he comes in and says hi. My father used to love the fact that you could get so much more out of walking in to see the patient, hold their hand, look them in the eyes, and get such a bigger picture than you could ever get from all of their charts, right? So Jill and my connection is one, she was very close to my parents, and obviously Jill has a journey she'll talk about. So Jonathan Banks, also a wonderful family connection. So Jonathan Banks, who is a doctor, whose family comes from Israel and South Africa. His father, it turns out, came and lived with me while I was growing up. He ousted me from my bedroom, so I never really liked him. I had to live in the back room, and he lived in the main room. He was here actually studying at NYU. I think it was first college, and then he went on to go to medical school, where my father was a teacher, and then his grandfather was a well-known doctor at a hospital in South Africa, in Israel.
Correct.
Right. That was Tel Shomer.
Correct.
Okay. So give me a little background about you. Tell me what you do. And
so this is probably the furthest from my element that I can possibly be on the stock exchange. My last name is Bank, so there's some connection to the
There's completely
numbers
connection. JP Morgan Bank was the first bank that was actually started here that goes back to Alexander Hamilton, right, in the 1600s. George Washington was inaugurated right behind you, right? So, Bank, you're right in the right place. You're right where you should be.
Another real out of my element moment here is all the computer screens and machinery that goes on over here. Because in my office, there are no computers, okay? They're all in the back rooms and stuff like that.
As they should be.
Right. It's correct. My father is a physician. My grandfather was a phenomenal physician and good friends with your father. So when we somehow came about this connection...
Absolute wonderful connection. Things happen for a reason.
My mouth dropped.
Yes.
My jaw dropped, rather. So... I'm a surgeon. I'm a plastic surgeon. I focus on reconstructive surgery. There's a lot of technology involved, but at the end of the day, it's these two hands and very rudimentary instruments that have improved over the time. So being here is very different from the experience that I'm used to.
Life, absolutely.
But I think there are some similarities that we were talking about before with the ups and downs of the market, the ups and downs of one's day-to-day life, and the cyclicality of the emotions and the human condition.
Yeah.
So that's, in a nutshell, what brought me to here.
Okay.
Jill can elaborate a little bit more, but in my practice, again, I focus a lot on breast reconstruction after cancer or in prevention, and we talk a lot about how technology can inform what we know to help us make decisions.
Okay.
So yes, there is a component of examining and talking to a person,
right,
but there's a lot that goes underneath the surface that as medical technology has developed, we can understand what is making us, what are the market players that will eventually manifest in disease and how to prevent it.
So let me interrupt you for a second. So one of the things about, medicine can be a very interactive experience between the doctor and the patient, and with certain diseases it tends to be more and or less. We know that cancer can be one where somebody feels very cookie cutter, they have to follow a certain protocol if you have this kind of cancer, and they feel like they're just being thrown into a factory, and they end up at the end. There's no humanistic approach to it. And obviously when it comes to breast cancer, it's a whole nother thing, and then reconstruction is a whole nother thing.
Well, you talk here a lot about, I was thinking about the commonalities between where we are and the issue that Jonathan brings in his lovely book, Regenerate. You talk about losses and recoveries here in the market.
Right.
So these are losses and recoveries that take place in hospitals and in homes, but in families, but also for women in front of the mirror.
Right.
It's about identity. And so this book profiles beautifully. It's like a coffee table, Italian manufactured, beautifully bound book on the experience of women, their strength, their resilience during breast reconstruction.
Right. So that's amazing too, right? I mean, just to relate it to here, it's all about resilience.
Right.
Our lives are all about resilience, right? And so Jill was very close friends with my father, who is a Holocaust survivor, and whose whole life is about resilience, especially spiritual and physical. Yeah. But when it comes to so we obviously know, and it's sort of, as a man, it's hard for us to relate to it. But obviously a woman and a woman's body and their relationship to it is obviously a super strong one. And so while obviously that we know that breast cancer is an incredibly prevalent disease, and we know that it's one of those diseases, look, if I get my kidneys removed or my, my gallbladder removed, look, it's not a good thing. And if it ends up well, it's okay. But obviously something that affects my outer look as a woman's breast is so freaking powerful. We as men and even as other women who have not experienced can't even imagine what that's like.
So that's really an interesting point, and the book that Jill was talking about is what you were describing brought us to the creation of this book. I've done several projects that deal on the fringe of between an artistic expression with a philosophical twist, very visual expressions of
as
women
is the woman's body.
Correct, going through different phases of breast reconstruction, focusing on different aspects of that.
Yeah.
This and all those books were, for the most part, conceived by me, but worked in with other partners of mine, either in the arts or in surgery, and the large majority of those people have been men. And we have tried to tell these women's stories, brought in other female creatives to help tell these stories, and the more women we brought in, the better the books are, the better the stories are. Yeah. But we always had this, we were just inherently biased and stuck behind our own filters as people that have not been in a woman's shoes going through this.
Yeah.
So you asked me earlier today off camera, is AI affecting anything that I do? In medicine to a certain degree, and we're trying to still figure out where it's going to affect, because it will for sure.
And it will in a huge way,
But in this specific project, we actually use AI to try to take pictures, because my work is very visual.
Right.
Prior projects have been very visual, photographic, and so on. But they've always focused on the external.
Right.
We're trying to take pictures of what's going on in a woman's head as she's going through these phases of diagnosis.
And how that will impact how you actually curate this new body that you're creating? Or?
Well, that's exactly what happened. We interviewed 9 women that were either diagnosed with breast cancer or faced with a diagnosis of extremely high risk for breast cancer.
Right.
And I tried to get, we took photos of them just to gain their semblances, but then we also interviewed them with actually one of my patients that has been through this.
Right.
And from those interviews, we essentially extracted prompts that then fed the computer, your AI machine,
Right.
to create images, also curated by another female AI artist, or really multimedia, very talented artist,
Right.
to create images that may be able to resonate, maybe able to express what those women that have gone through this,
Right.
and maybe also resonate with another individual that may say, oh my God, I couldn't express it. This is an image of what is going on in my head.
So think about that. That's so powerful, because you think about it. So you go in, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer. You know, some can be treated with radiation and it's less invasive into the body. Mm-hmm. Obviously some, and we'll talk about the BRCA gene as well, with younger women who have cancer in one breast and basically have both double mastectomy to prevent what could be in the future. And in the beginning, I remember it, and I remember it well, how traumatic that was. A decision for a woman to do that, it's huge. It's like if you're taking out a piece of my face or any part of my body that is something that is very visual, very external, and it defines who I am as a person.
Yeah,
right?
And beyond that, also, it's the choices that women make. It's the complexity of choices. And it's not knowing exactly what the right choice is to do. And it's all left in your hands to make the decision. If you want to have breast conserving therapy, if you want to have a mastectomy, if you want to go for radiation, there are guidelines, but ultimately it's your choice how you want to move forward. And the great thing is, you mentioned the BRCA gene. The proceeds of this book, 90% of proceeds, are going to the Vassar Center for BRCA, which was founded by John and Mindy Gray.
Okay.
And it was the first comprehensive center developed for the prevention, treatment, and research about the BRCA mutation.
So that is a genetic, that is
Predisposition.
a predisposition in a woman to actually get cancer in more than one breast and in the body.
Yeah. Now everybody has a BRCA mutation. Everyone has a BRCA gene.
Okay.
But some people,
Are more
1 in 200 in the general population, have a mutation of this.
Okay.
And it's a cancer suppressor gene. And so it doesn't allow the body, doesn't have the right information in your DNA. There's an error. It's a faulty.
Suppress the cancer.
To suppress the cancer.
Yes.
As someone that is basically involved with decision making and guiding people how to make decisions
Yes.
for the past 40 plus years,
Yes, exactly.
you know, what you have here and the amount of variables that you guys play with,
Right.
they're 1,000-fold in the human body.
Right.
And then a young woman has to make a decision knowing only a small fraction
Right.
of those data points.
Right.
Throw in all the emotional,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say noise, but the emotional background.
Right.
How would you build a strategy for someone to make a decision in that context?
You know, one of the first things that we do when you talk about trading stocks, look, money is a funny thing. It's completely different than all the other stuff. The first thing you have to do is take the emotionality out of it. You're talking about a woman's body and reconstructing a woman's body. That not only is a physical change, but it's a deeply mental change. It's a level of confidence. It's our identity, exactly, which we as men surely cannot even affect. It's as if we had our genitals removed or something, right? But not even as much, because that's not. I don't walk around without my clothes on, so it's so external, and we are such a society of people who judge people visually, right? I can see you coming down the street. I don't know if you have cancer, but I may be able to see whether you have your breast removed, or whether whoever took care of you and reconstructed your breast did a good job or a bad job, or how you carry yourself, or how you were treated, right? It's all a matter of really how you're treated. Obviously, it's amazing that women haven't gotten into your field. Women who would have a closer identity.
No, there are.
There are
actually close to 50% of
the
plastic
fantastic
surgeons now are women.
Are there women, though, when you're sitting in that room and you're getting your diagnosis, women who are advocates for the patient, right? Because I will live through it. My wife had cancer, and I remember I went through that whole thing, and how at different points along the way, you feel like just a piece of meat. You don't feel like you're a human being anymore. You don't feel like they're supporting the other parts of your body. Like my wife ended up dying from cancer. I believe she more died of the chemotherapy because they did not rebuild her immune system at the same time. And it was just like we put so much onus on doctors to be gods, right? They can't do anything wrong, and their decision. I'm sure. I know that's the fact. But the bottom line is, when you're deciding on something, it's a life and death situation. That's one thing. You would hope that you're getting the best advice. That's why you get another opinion. But when it's a matter of your you're being treated correctly, and a doctor being able to look you in the eye and you feel that feeling that they have your best interest involved and they are connecting on some emotional level.
That's what drew me to the practice that I'm in, is we have an individual, now it's a second generation of that position. Currently, Dr. Celeste Rivera works in our practice, and she's a psychologist.
Right.
And all she does completely on our behalf is make sure that women and their caregivers and their offspring
are seen and heard and
exactly
Yeah.
feel on the same. So we call it the patient empowerment program, and there are patient advocates across the country that really only I think emerged over the last half a decade.
I mean, that is so
Or maybe-
unusual
Exactly
to
right.
have an in-house psychologist to care for women.
and there's no other disease where that is so much more important.
I'm sure there are equivalents, children or end-of-life situations.
Yeah,
there
sure.
are.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important to at least have that discussion and that opportunity.
I think that also there's something about statistics and lectures and ideas of what's going to happen in the future or what treatment is going to yield what result.
Right.
But at the end of the day, people need a lighthouse. They need someone who's going to say,
Who's gonna be
we've
the
been
beacon."
here
Right.
before.
Yep.
Here is the path forward for you. You will go from darkness to light.
Right.
You will enter into the chaos and the shock of a diagnosis, or quite frankly, the shock of news from the future, which is you have a genetic predisposition to disease.
Right.
And it's not just breast cancer, of
feeling
course, it's
that, like, it's a death
Alzheimer's.
sentence.
Right,
Yep.
it's Alzheimer's, it's heart disease, it's colon cancer. As genetic medicine becomes part of everyday medicine,
Yep.
people are going to be hearing about news from the future for, in depth now
100%.
for a long time. And it's very hard to deal because you don't know the degree to which it's going to happen. You don't know the details of it, so you're thrust into the future while still being in the present.
Right, and you
very
also
challenging.
don't know. Look, this person may have been, you have your general practitioner or your primary care physician. The person who is going to tell you that you have breast cancer is not somebody who you probably knew before, and so suddenly that's a brand new relationship that you have to build on. Relative to talking about AI. So AI is obviously, it's a big part of what I do. We don't use AI in my trading, so it doesn't play a role in my career and my profession. However, AI was something that sort of fascinated me. I didn't understand it, and I spend a lot of time talking to younger high school and college students, and they're wondering, what do I do? What about my career? How am I going to get a job? I heard this AI thing is going to outsource human beings altogether. Like, it's great when I need to write a term paper, but am I ever going to get a job again? Because these robots are going to be able to do everything. And so I work with a guy, his name is Dan Ives. He's the #1 tech analyst in the world, and he's the guy who caught NVIDIA at the beginning of its phase, NVIDIA being one of the top tech AI names, and he explained to me that we are that AI is going to make our lives better across the board. There is no downside to it at all. Right? And look, if one is fearful about a job, then go out and learn about AI, learn about coding, learn about that. But I said, so what's the best case scenario? And he said, it's the medical practice. It's our health. And so think about it. I mean, if you are opening me up, right, the last thing I want to hear when you open me up is, wow, I've never seen this before. I want that doctor to have seen every single case of that disease. I remember I had a friend who got cancer as a kid, and my father literally just went everywhere. It was called, I think it was dysgerminoma or something. It was an ovarian cancer. And she was 18 years old, and they wanted immediately to take out both her ovaries and just like be super overprotective and overconservative. And my father said, she's an 18-year-old woman who should not grow up with both ovaries unnecessarily. And he went around the world literally finding slides of every case of this disease at the time, right? She's now has a child and a grandchild, and wouldn't have had that if they had taken out both her ovaries. So there's so many multi-levels to it. But as far as AI goes, it will probably, so you talked about it from really the artistic point of view. That will be so amazing too. Look, if we give the woman the power back, the minute you diagnose someone with it and then you suddenly cut off a piece of their body, which is a big part of their identity, and they've lost their power. And so if there's anything you can do along that journey to give them their power back, there's nothing better.
It's not just about the physical, which is huge, but it's also the fear and vulnerability and the shock and the mortality of it, and the worry, the fear that they won't be here to take care of their children.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we're still far from AI really affecting the technical things that we do.
Right.
It's beginning to affect decision making, like you said. In surgery, there's an infinite number of variables that unfold at each twist, and for specific instances, I think we're starting, like, we're very limited disease scenarios or surgical scenarios. We're starting to make strides.
Where you're going
to
to turn it over to AI, where you're not going to use the human judgment.
Probably not in my career, but down the road. So, I think what we're trying to do with this specific project is to tap into how we can use AI to look at the emotional side of things.
So let's talk about the project per se. So obviously you're a reconstructive breast surgeon,
correct?
Right. Obviously, the breast cancer is a huge deal, and I would know what are the numbers of what's the percentage of people with breast cancer actually have to have a mastectomy or a double mastectomy? I mean, because that's the road we're going on. That's the journey. So what the project itself? What part of this journey is the project?
So 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay, that's terrible odds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jill can talk more about the specific numbers of women that have known genetic mutations or what the prevalence of that is.
Right.
And out of the women that are diagnosed with breast cancer, something like 15% or so will have to undergo a mastectomy.
Right.
There's plenty of options for breast conserving surgery and other ways to treat breast cancer.
Right. Breast preserving?
Yeah, so
preserve as much of the breast.
Double lumpectomy.
Right, I understood.
You can either remove just the part of the breast that's affected, or you can, if the risk assessment is so high, you may say, I'm going to remove the entire breast or both sides.
Understood.
And then back in the day, that's just what you did, and there was no options to reconstruct.
Right.
Where I come in is to how to reconstruct how do we deal with what's left.
Right.
So if a complete mastectomy is done, you can either close the patient, the woman, and just have what we call an aesthetic flat closure, flat-chested. Nothing wrong with that. That's her choice. There's something we call.
That's a woman who decides that she doesn't want to have breasts any longer.
Right. Breasts don't define her as a woman.
Right.
She's like, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
Most women.
It's got to be a challenge.
But some people choose that.
Yeah,
we support
absolutely.
that.
Look, because I know I have actually a friend who's gone through so much really bad reconstructive stuff that what's left, unfortunately, now is if she could have turned back time. Right.
I'll get to that too.
Okay.
So the second option was we call implant-based reconstruction, silicone implants, just like we use for augmentation. A very different scenario, but the same concept. Underneath the breast skin, you put the implant, and they look like breast mounds.
Right.
In clothes, out of clothes, and all as well.
Right.
The problem is that they're foreign objects, so they never fully integrate into the body.
Right.
So there's maintenance long term.
There's a big chance that the body may reject or other things.
The third option is something we specialize in, is using the body's own tissue. So we basically transplant one part of the body to another part.
Okay.
So the most common site is the lower belly. We basically remove what may be excess.
So the majority of what's inside of a breast is fat.
In a natural breast tissue, they're really underneath the skin.
Right.
There's a little bit of fat underneath the skin.
Right.
Then there's the breast gland. That's what can turn cancerous.
Right.
And then there's also fatty tissue. So it's a composite.
And that can be found in another part of your body.
A different part of the body. It's just fat. So you can transplant that safely and not expect the fat to turn into breast cancer because it's not breast tissue.
Right. And the body is less likely to reject it.
Correct. Yeah. It's more technically involved.
Right.
It's like plumbing on a microscopic scale almost.
Right.
And that's called microsurgery or microsurgical reconstruction or natural tissue reconstruction. And that's becoming more and more common just because technology is advancing. Smart people are figuring out how to do that to do those operations and more.
So you think I have a stressful job? My job is number 2 stressful job on earth next to air traffic controller. I would admit yours is even more than air traffic controller.
We have moments. We have moments.
I'm sure.
So it's all about repetition.
Right.
And
sure.
then
Same with me.
you end up specializing, but still, there are plenty of twists and turns.
Yeah.
And that's where AI may be able to help me make better decisions. That's all, like I said, very physical. There's a whole emotional aspect that we're very interested in.
Right.
I would say my father's a physician. My mother was a jeweler / artist. So I always wanted to kind of combine the two. That's one of the reasons I went into plastic surgery.
Okay.
And
right, because there's a big artistic part of your job.
Well, yes. One of my mentors, who is also a master's in fine art in photography, I would say there are 2 types of plastic surgeons. There's the artist type and the engineer type that are very, cut here.
Didn't your father take photos? Didn't he love taking photographs? No, I had a memory of that. Okay, go ahead.
So the idea of combining the two was always very interesting, and I actually stumbled upon a gallery exhibit that was selling books for a foundation that I had no idea at the time,
Right.
but they were supporting cancer patients recovering their story. The foundation was called Look Good, Feel Better. It was helping women with hair and makeup after chemotherapy,
Right.
and so the devastating hit that
Yeah.
just took on their appearance and affects their emotions as well.
Yep.
And ultimately I teamed up with him and started creating these projects that have been mainly photography based.
Okay.
Again, focusing on different
To
aspects.
turn something that can be such a dark thing and such a painful, jagged edge to something that's
creative.
That
beautiful
was
and creative.
exactly the first book
Yeah.
called Reconstructed, and we borrowed from the Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi, which is exactly what you're describing.
Wabi-sabi.
A dark spot and bring. So, but the real world expression of that is something called kintsugi. You've seen the broken pottery with the
Yep.
pieces of the cracks lined in
Yep,
gold.
yep.
So we
I used to be
translated.
a potter. I love
Really?
that stuff. Yeah.
Well, when you broke stuff, you should have fixed it.
Yeah, I did. I did. I learned that. I studied with a guy, a little Jewish guy from Brooklyn who went and spent time in Japan.
Amazing.
So I learned all about that.
So the first book project we did was called Reconstructed, and we basically painted the scars of breast cancer and reconstruction in gold, and then really expanded
Isn't
that.
their idea almost that with the reconstruction of something that's been shattered and broken can
That's
be
right.
even more
More
beautiful
valuable.
than
And
the
valuable.
It's
original?
like you're quoting my website.
Right.
Psychic.
That's exactly. That's
can
exactly.
be more
that.
beautiful
Right.
than the original.
And
Exactly.
valuable.
And valuable.
And wiser.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Wise.
that was the first project that led to several others.
Right.
And some focused on the physical form. We sculpted
Right.
women in different stages of the reconstruction with silicone molds.
Okay.
One was equating women to flowers going through their phases of losing a petal and then regrowing or reblossoming
Right.
with appropriate care and nurture. There was
Right.
another little project that really kind of deleted the body, cropped them out of the before and after pictures, and just focused on little glimmers of emotion, smiles, and so on.
Right.
And
Before and after surgery, like the fear before surgery
Yeah.
and the
You
freedom.
kinda humanized
yeah,
the-
and the
the
freedom
emotional
after knowing
yeah.
you can come out, you're going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah, very
Right.
important.
Well, I didn't humanize anything. They're humans.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just
Right. But from
Well, you
focus
share
on
the human
certain-
experience.
Right.
we just focused on aspects of humanity in this cold, stark,
yeah.
very inhumane, clinical studio.
Yeah.
And a lot of these projects have been like a child of my filtered male mind,
Right.
and shot by a photographer with his own filter.
Right.
And at some point it was like, this isn't, well, it's not at some point, basically throughout it's been like this self-criticism of how can I tell a woman's story if I've not been in her shoes. And I remember 2 years ago we were printing our fourth book, that Reblossom book, and I was sitting, I was like, we have to find a different type of photographer.
Right.
This is 2 years ago when the very early manifestations of AI imagery were coming. So there was something called DALL-E and DALL-E 2, and you would type in a little prompt and it would give you 4 options or 4 versions of this little pixelated,
Right.
very crude
Related to the
images.
artist Dolly, or that was
It's
just-
like a
It's a play on words,
A
right?
play on
Okay,
words
gotcha.
that I can't remember if it was Microsoft or
Okay,
or OpenAI. It was probably before OpenAI. Anyway, so you got these very crude pixelated images that sort of gave the vibe, but not exactly.
Okay.
Fast forward about a year. This is maybe a year and a half or so ago now. I stumbled upon a post that some photographer that I met through that first project that reposted something for International Women's Day.
Right.
And it was almost like, looked like a stop motion thing. And I clicked on her Instagram profile, and I saw all these things. These images. I was like, oh my God, that's how I wanted that book to be, not
Right.
through that filter.
Right.
I wanted her much more emotive, much more abstract.
Right.
I reached out to her. She's all the way in Austria, and I said, "Hey, I have this idea." And
She went for it.
yes,
After a
ultimately.
little work.
Yeah, after a little work, she actually flew here, and with another videographer who shot the interviews, but also the whole process of creating this. And then
Right.
we worked together by interviewing these women, and a brilliant creative director that essentially put together the book that I'm about to gift you.
Right. Thank you.
And the woman told the story. I said, I have this idea. I don't know what your story is. I sort of know what your story is.
Right.
We treated the cohort of 9 women as the main character.
Right.
And what's amazing is that, well, Stephanie Eichner, the person that, the videographer,
Right.
that weaved it together like that to a 7-minute clip that I think is just absolutely stunning. She was able to tell that story. I just said, they're the main
what you want,
character.
right.
I didn't say this is what I want. They're the main character.
Right.
Weave it together. And she was able to do it in a way that it was almost like one woman would complete the other woman's sentence visually or verbatim.
Right, right.
Just to show that, these women, it's really something that, while it's a very individual experience,
Right. There is that connection.
they're going
It's
in together.
Genetic connection.
Yeah. So between that and then connecting the stunning photographs with the AI overlays or other expressions, Olivia Russin, who is a book, I'm going to say editor, but more of a creative director, was
Right.
able to weave this together, and then just with the technical aspects of where we printed it and how we printed it, it's the project they're probably most proud of.
Right.
And all because here's my idea, you guys run with it, you women run with it.
Right, right,
And I'm
right.
glad that it's benefiting a foundation that is literally changing breast cancer, because the best treatment now for breast cancer is prevention. There's, from one of my former projects, one of the women said, who was what we call a pre-virus, so she was diagnosed and that chose the big decision to undergo bilateral risk-reducing mastectomy.
Right.
She told me that her doctor said, you're the cure for breast cancer. You taking that step now, doing that, you're just not going to get breast cancer, or you're reducing it to the lowest
Right.
risk possible.
Right.
That's the difference. And the only reason she's able to do that is because the research that finds that we have some predisposition and figure out how to take care of it. I just come in at the end
Right.
to make sure we also feel good about it.
Yeah. And the word is interception now. Now they're talking about cancer interception.
Right. That's fast. So, how, as a doctor, how emotionally involved do you get with each one of your patients? Obviously, you're an empath, right? You wouldn't be doing what you're doing, or even this project at all, if there wasn't some severe emotional connection to it, right? So, but just personally, you've obviously had dozens of patients who you've worked on, right? You're not just a surgeon, you're a reconstructive surgeon. So you're going through this, and obviously from the way you're doing this, you're sort of breaking down all those barriers of the normal cookie cutter thing where
surgeon,
you are trying
cut
to
and dry.
put yourself in their minds to get their vision out of this thing the best way. How emotionally connected do you get to each patient?
It varies. Some people, I'm
people
a doctor,
may be
I'm a
more
professional.
open,
We got to
right.
respect boundaries
Yeah, of course.
in all directions. Obviously, with these women that, in breast cancer in general, breast and reconstruction, seldom it's just a one-stop. Okay, hi, bye. Here, remove
Yeah,
your
of course.
gallbladder.
Yeah,
see you
right.
later,
Yeah, yeah.
or never see you later.
Right.
It's a process. So, and it's a very emotional one. So we obviously deal with that a lot. So we have to be respectful. And I don't know, as a human being, the reason I was drawn to that subspecialty within my subspecialty
Right.
is because I still have faith in humans.
Right.
It makes my day more interesting,
Right.
just meeting the wide variety of walks of life that I encounter, and it's a wide variety, and I love that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As you know, my grandfather was the old school doctor.
Yep.
Who had amazing relationship with his patients. I'm sure that affected me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I know it enriched
Yeah, that
his
was
life
something
as a
that
doctor.
just
you saw
doesn't.
in your father.
It's like my father, it doesn't exist, and that's why they
So,
were such close friends. It doesn't exist anymore.
I think so that I think is what enabled me to a certain degree to even have the courage to ask these women,
Right.
and for them to have the courage and trust in me to
Right, absolutely.
bear it all
Right,
and show
so
the
surely not
world.
anybody
Yeah.
could be doing
Yeah.
what you're doing.
But I think what drives these projects the most is the desire of these women to, come full circle for themselves.
Right?
Absolutely.
Some closure.
Yeah.
Right.
They know some of them know what's coming in their children's future. If their
Right.
mother, their grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt is, and they have 2 daughters,
Yeah.
how are they sleeping at night?
Right,
Without
exactly.
knowing that they are not doing anything in their power, and sometimes just telling their story.
Look, we're the
to
master
do
of
this.
denial. Like most people,
Right.
think they can go through making believe something's not going to happen. Actually, there's way more power in knowing, right?
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
So so it's their immediate themselves, their children, but I think that the most righteous way of being is to help a stranger that you'll never even meet.
Right.
So, you know, if they picture,
random act of kindness.
exactly.
Yes.
They put a picture in a book, and that resonates with a lady
So many people.
in Italy that sees it, or in South America that sees it and said, okay, I'll go get a mammogram, I'll go get
Right.
checked, I'll do something. And that's happened.
But it's
to
That's
us.
the
also-
interceptive part of this whole
Exactly.
thing.
It's
right.
the power of stories and how they can impact you and
That's-
how they
it's
can
all
give you
about it.
courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, you know what? Look, it's a matter of not comparing, but identifying,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we compare ourselves to other people, whether it's, you know, I mean, this morning I was doing some social media stuff, and this one person who was on this live thing just kept asking me what I was worth off this. I said, I'm a trillionaire. He annoyed me, and then I got him out of there. But it's just, you know, when I hear a story, I can identify, we can learn from that.
Right.
It's a whole nother level. All the barriers are down, and it suddenly becomes an emotional and a personal thing, and that's amazing. The people who are buying these, I mean, obviously there are a couple iterations of the book so far, right?
Yeah.
Is there something now that's about to come out? Which this
Yeah,
is
so-
this brand new?
This is brand new.
Cool.
This is probably one of the fifth.
So
or
it's
sixth
not
copies.
common you would think of a coffee table book about reconstructive breast
reconstruction,
cancer, but you know what? At the end of the day, you know, the more it's out in the open, the more people talk about something that is hiding, you know, in plain sight, the better it is, right?
So in this hiding in plain sight, well, we kind of try to make like a little techie appearance to it, and you can
Right.
feel it. And
It's gorgeous.
most of my books were were vertical.
Right.
All of the previous 4 books were vertical, and the photographer that shot it sort of insisted we do something in landscape, which was, can I say, a pain in the butt on?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
It was a real pain in the butt to create. And you know, I have my OCD. I want my books lined up nicely, not something jotting out. So we actually created something that is in landscape.
Wow, look
And
at that.
in plain
So
sight over
exciting.
here,
Look at that.
you have this, well, we call it regenerate. It's a play on my previous books, reconstructed, restored, reblossom.
Right.
This is regenerate, which is an encouraging word to regenerate after this bad instance
Right,
in your
right,
life.
right.
So obviously play on words,
Un-
generative
something
AI.
like create anew, I guess,
Correct.
regenerate.
And this is not a real image, or it's not a photograph, but it's an AI expression of one woman's story. So the
Is
book
it a
itself,
woman sort of holding herself like this, or is it
It's
just
whatever-
whatever you
how-
think it
whatever
is?
you
Yeah,
think it
right.
is.
Amazing.
so, you know, again, Jill wrote this
Of course she
incredible
did.
introduction.
Of course she did. Anybody out there, Jill writes the best introductions of anything.
I yap about in my philosophy over here in the foreword. And
That's
it's-
super powerful.
yeah.
That's just being a doctor's son and knowing what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's a super powerful piece
So
right there.
Yeah.
we
Right?
really try to show how, you know, at the end of the day, all this tech, it's like zeros and ones.
Yep, yep.
And how does that correspond with life and
Yeah.
humanity?
Algorithmic
So there are going to be some
intervention.
breasts here in a second. So I
Okay,
don't know
cool.
if your Instagram
That's
or
okay,
whatever
yeah,
is going
we
to
can handle
explode.
it.
But we sort of get the fact that, yes, this is about breast and breast cancer
Right.
out of the way.
Yeah.
And then we focus on the women.
Yeah.
Okay?
Gotcha.
And then there are different stages, essentially, which organically came from just hearing their stories. Chapter 1, the diagnosis.
Right,
You know, feels like she's drowning. This is an AI generated image,
right.
but meant to look very organic, very grainy, very.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the addition of AI really furthers the inquiry. You know, it just regular photographs are so beautiful, fine art
Right.
photography, but this adds another element to it.
Right.
This is
Yep.
what women say. They remember the moment when they're diagnosed.
Of course.
They talk a
Absolutely.
lot about that a lot. And in one split second, everything just turned upside down. This woman, you know, you talk about a lot of changes over COVID. Her father had just passed away,
Right.
just had a baby. All of a sudden, she gets a phone call. She thinks that she's going to die,
Right.
breast cancer. So the problem was the photos were too beautiful. How do we match that? How do we
Right.
combine it
With
with
the
AI?
pain.
pain. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there's this extra layer. This is a AI generated image
It's a very
with
modern
her and
book.
Yep.
her baby, but this
It's
is
a
her.
modern thought process as well, because
Right.
you would people like people sort of think if I don't see it and I don't examine it or I don't feel the pain, well then it's not real to me.
Right.
But you know what? The bottom line is it's got to
Yeah,
be
and I think
it's got to
this-
be out there for
This
people
is
to.
it. It's mortality.
It's mortality.
It's the uncertainty, you know?
Yeah.
It's the fear.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the start of it.
Yeah, that's
It does get
that's
brighter
right.
over time.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it does.
And they
But the
figure out
initial
how
shock.
to deal with themselves.
Look, at the end of the
future.
day, you know what? At the end of the day, surviving, right? It's surviving at different levels, right? I survived like a 3-month death sentence with COVID.
Yep.
Having had 7 neck surgeries, my whole cervical spine is like fused in 9 places. So I definitely suffer, but I'm still alive. So it's a matter of what.
Right.
So where do you make your decision?Here what are you grateful for at the end of the day? Is that you're there for your kids and your grandkids, type of thing.
That's exactly what this is about.
I think also your father exemplified the attitude of it's not the burden you bear, it's how you bear the burden. So you were talking before about being on the floor or your trading business about
Right.
you don't tell people how to do it. You don't tell people what to do. You teach them how to do it. And I think that's the advantage of having a physician with whom you connect or having an organization like Basser. They'll tell you what to do, but they give you community to help you plot a path forward so that you feel held, you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel recognized.
That's so huge because I know, at least from what my wife went through, you just feel invisible.
Invisible.
And that nobody cares about it, and that's a big part of the struggle, that anywhere along the way that you're being supported, right?
And being alone in your head is not a healthy place to be.
No, even look, I mean, I hope that, that we as a family supported my wife to the best of our ability, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're limited as humans, but there's a large community, and technology helps us create those communities, and with organization like Basser and others, you're really able to build them in a thoughtful way.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we're selling.
So let's
these
talk about
books.
Basser a little
Yes.
bit. So obviously, talk about John.
Well, Mindy and John founded this incredible
And who are
organization.
they?
Mindy is his lovely wife, who's been such an incredible, staunch advocate, talking about this amazing foundation that they began, this organization that is, as I said, the first comprehensive center for research, prevention, and treatment. So it's a community. There are physicians, there's treatment, but it's the community and the research that they do. It's very unusual because they're housed at the University of Pennsylvania, but they are funding the best and the boldest research no matter where it is. They don't care where it's coming from.
Right.
And that's very unusual.
So look, just as a country with AI and everything, we're about to embark on some really new stuff, right? Where there's this whole, the new biohack about regenerative health and anti-aging and all that. I know for myself, like in October, I couldn't even walk or move, and I'm on every possible. I have a hyperbaric chamber in my apartment. So
really?
That's how crazy I am. And and I wake up every day. I run 7 companies. I trade $1 billion worth of stock, and I feel like $1 million. So I know that things are changing.
I know you feel like $1 billion, but what are you actually?
What are you worth? Yeah, we want to know what you're worth.
1.5 billion.
Trillion. I thought you said trillion.
But so we're about to. The timing is perfect for this, and it's and you're breaking down a lot of. It's perfect for what we talk about in here. Is you're breaking down every. There are probably 1 million people go. Well, how can you think that there's any beauty in this or all that kind of stuff? But the woman I interviewed earlier before you was talking about trying to raise money about awareness of Alzheimer's and dementia, and that why would anybody want to donate money to a center to get more information about it if it wasn't a personal thing? And so obviously the people who are funding this, there's a personal connection to it. And so thank God for that, right? It's not somebody who's doing it as an investment. They're doing it because it's really personal.
Well, the Basser Center for BRCA was founded after Mindy's sister, who was in her early 40s, Faith Basser was her name.
Right.
She sadly passed away of ovarian cancer. So BRCA puts you at higher risk not only for breast cancer, but also ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer for men. And so they went all in on this organization, and it's been a tremendous impact in the scientific community.
So the last thing I will say, it's amazing, and I'm so happy hopefully we can get it out there, and it's all about telling the story.
Yeah, and the book launch is October 30th.
Okay, so fantastic on that. Congratulations. It's amazing.
See you there.
Right, it's amazing, and it will definitely get the message across. And look, it's just one person at a time. If you can open somebody's eyes, that's all you need. And then somebody telling somebody. I mean, that's how things work. We don't think. So one of my mentors is this guy named David Meltzer. David Meltzer is the guy who they made the Jerry Maguire movie about. He was a guy who was the first person to work in the sports field with endorsements, right? Who came up with the idea that if you're playing basketball for me and you're wearing Nikes, why aren't you being paid $40 million by Nike? Right. And by the age of 28, he was a multimillionaire, and he lost everything. He went belly up in the financial crisis and lost everything. He was literally just living in a basement, having spiritually, emotionally, financially lost everything. And he decided when he hit bottom, he crawled out of it. When we hit bottom, we do a couple of things. Either the bottom falls out of the bottom or you crawl out. Mm-hmm. And he decided to embark on this mission to bring joy to 1 billion people in the world. And so I'm going well, that's kind of a daunting friggin' task. How do you do that? And he said, you'd be amazed that one person at a time, right? That's how it happens. That's how it started. That's the real power, is one person telling one person telling one person. And you can literally achieve anything, by doing it that way. So
I went into medicine because I thought I couldn't change the world.
Right.
But, if you affect one individual at a time, obviously there's the well-known, sounds better in Hebrew, if you save one soul, one life, it's like you save the entire world. So, somebody pages through a book or looks at a picture, and maybe we'll touch more than one. Yeah. So thank you for this platform.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And as I said, that was my father's main thing, that if I can, at the end, nobody gets out of here alive. And at the end of our lives, if we go, it doesn't matter how many, Bugattis and stacks of $10,000 you have, but if you can have affected anybody, one person in a positive way, and I see it how much, in my field, if I can, during COVID, there were people who had lost their jobs and didn't know what to do and weren't able to support their family, and we taught them how to trade, and they're now they're traders and they're supporting their family. I had a woman, we did this partnership launch with this company, and we did sort of a flash mob and put up a billboard in Times Square, and this lady showed up, and I put it out on social media. This lady showed up. She was a single mom. She could not afford anything to bring her kid up or send him to school or anything. She saw one of my videos. She got sort of inspired. Wow. She learned how to trade, and now she's living her dream. Wow. So if one person, if you can do that for one person, so I would imagine you've probably changed multiple people's lives, right? And them coming out of the darkest of possible places in a positive way. Because, that's the problem, too. When they are so scarred, they're not out in the open. They retract into that really dark place, and you don't hear from them again, right? So, putting it out in the open is amazing. So it's really been a pleasure. Thank you, my love.
Thank you.
You're amazing. And you know what? Trade like Einstein, that's all I got to say about that.